These canyon walls carry my tune. The only one to hear my song are the coyotes and the wolves. But if I drink enough of this flask, I can hear them sing your song too.
Robert Leiterman, I am here at the Berm, on the 12N 13H Berm, with Jamie Wayne, member of the Bluff Creek Project. And it's been great weather, it's been really nice. We've been up here a few days, and it's been pretty fun. Now, Jamie, I'm looking at that bike over there, and I had a blast. You did that bike, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's a pretty sweet e-bike. I built it kind of specifically for coming out here. It's got a lot of power, and it'll drag you up the hill pretty good. But yeah, it's a silent electric bike. It's got a big hub motor on the back, and it's got a 20 amp hour battery on it. So the controller puts out about 20 amps at full throttle, so you get, geez, a whole hour at full throttle on that bike. So it's pretty cool. I'm glad you had a good time on it. You look like you had a big smile on your face.
Yeah, I got a lot of bugs stuck in my teeth on the way back.
Rowdy had a good time.
Yeah, the only problem on the back, I couldn't see was the light. I don't want to come in hot, and crash.
Oh yeah, you got to wear sunglasses or something.
Yeah, and a helmet. But that's an awesome bike. I mean, you've been talking about it, and this is the first time you keep saying, Robert, take it for a ride, take it for a ride. No, it's all right. No, it's all right. I finally did. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you look like a kid riding his first Huffy.
That's
1978.
Right. So, Jamie, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Oh, well, my name's Jamie. I am a member of the Bluff Creek Project, and I mostly do the trail camera work. I helped out with some of the math and stuff on the film site rediscovery project, and ever since then, we've been coming out here, and I've been doing all the trail cameras. So every year we set up trail cameras down at the film site, and check the footage, and see if we got a Bigfoot. So yeah, it's pretty fun. Currently, I'm working as a geologist. I work on well sites, and I was a mechanic before, so I kind of have come from that background. And yeah, so I've been doing this for a while. Got a few more years left, I think. So. But lately we've been working on projects down here like trail work and working on we got a new park bench down there, got some cool stuff going. So
yeah, I'm going to comment on that park bench because Jamie says, hey, I'm going to bring parts of the park bench where he can help me haul it down. I'm going to put it together, when you get down there. And so I was somewhere else. So you had help.
Well, I had been wanting to build a bench for a long time. And the idea, I think it came from a couple of years ago where I brought, I remember sitting at the film site with my computer, and I had multiple packs and bags, and I had 20 cameras all, sitting all around. I'm trying to do things, I'm dropping memory cards on the ground, and batteries are flying everywhere. And I was like, man, I wish I had a table or like a bench. We need to bring a bench down here.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, well, we can get a bench, and I had talked about it for a couple of years. And finally I went, I said, okay, this year's the year I'm going to finally get a picnic table down there. And we kind of settled on the bat boxes because that's an old camp and it's on the old road. So it's not like a new area that we've made. That's an old Forest Service campground, camping spot. Everyone's camped there. And it's got a historic fire ring. So I was like, okay, picnic table down there, then I could set up all my camera stuff, I can get the memory cards, and we can do everything on the table. Well, I built the table at my house, disassembled it, brought it here, and oh gosh, it took so long to get down there. It was back and forth with boards, and Tate was there, and me and Tate, and his little cousin Gibson was down there, and we were hauling boards and getting stuck, and and it took us hours. Normally the hike down's like 15 minutes, but it just took us hours to get down there. But the table went together really great. And the thing I like most is that it's a real picnic table. It's heavy.
Yeah.
It's big. You can sit on it, and it won't fall over or flip over. And you can put you can even sleep on it. It's 8 foot long, 4 foot wide. It's it's really great. So I'm pretty proud of that.
And rightfully so, because we hiked out. We spent a couple of days pretty much up the Bluff Creek drainage. We hiked out, and lo and behold, we're going to make our left-hand turn at the sign. There's this bench sitting there, and I was kind of lagging behind because I was trying to catch up with the rest of the group. And it was Ian and Rowdy, and they're sitting at this picnic table. I go, oh yeah, that's the table that you were working on.
Yeah.
So of course I got to sit on it. I put my stuff on it.
I made the seats on there big enough so that way you can really sit at the table. So you don't have to sit sideways,
right.
Or you can, you could really sit on it. I mean, it is a big kid table. It's not like a
yeah.
child-sized table. So.
And it's substantial. It's heavy, and it's
yeah,
I'm
and
impressed.
it ain't going nowhere. And it's I use pressure treated wood for the legs, so the legs are treated with copper. They basically they won't rot. That table won't rot. It'll be there for a long time, and people are going to be carving their names into it, and everything. So.
Well, that's substantial because you are very instrumental in the early stages of I guess in late 2011 with the Bluff Creek Film Site project. You did the math on comparing the 71 with the with our
the 1971 Renee DeHinden photo.
Yeah,
was one of the it's one of the only photos that we have of the film site taken from up on the hill, so you can see kind of everything from the film site. And that was the comparison shot that we did with the map, because you made the map of all the stumps and all where everything is and all the trees in the background. Then you have the 1971 photo, which is the Patterson site. You could look and you say, okay, this is the Patterson site. You can see all the trees. It's exactly the same place. So it's pretty cool to compare the map with the DeHinden photo, because when you compare the map with the film,
yeah,
it just looking at it, it's hard to tell. When you look at the map and you look at the film, you say, well, I don't know, because the film's shot at ground level. You can't see into the distance. You could see the trees and stuff, but you can't tell how far away everything is.
Right. With
the aerial photo that Renee DeHinden had, you can see that. You can see all the little ground details. You can see all that stuff. You can make comparisons. And when you compare the film site map with the DeHinden photo, they're the same place. All the stumps are there. All the trees are there. And I drew lines and triangles between everything, and figured out the angles and distances between stuff, which you could do on the map, and then you compare that to the photo. And you look on the photo, and you use a scale, and I used distances between two known stumps as a scale, and then everything else matches up. So there's 10 or 15 different monuments, which are stumps and trees, which are still there, and you could do all the measurements, and everything's the same. So you look on the DeHinden photo, you say, oh, well, the angle between these two stumps and this tree is 35 degrees. You look on the map and you break out your protractor, you say, oh, it's exactly 35 degrees. Like, that's exactly what it should be. So it's definitely really cool.
Yeah, it's that math expertise that you had that you brought into the film site. And again, it's related to that picnic table you just constructed, designed, and brought all the way down.
Well, I was pissed off because building a picnic table is complicated if you ever try to build a picnic table, because you have multiple angles and they all have to be, the height of the table, you want a table to be 30 inches tall and about 17 inches for the seats, and that's like a standard table height. But everything's at an angle, so you still have to do your trigonometry and then have everything work out. So, and I had to build it away, so I couldn't bring a saw down here and trim stuff up. I had to have it all built. So I made everything, did all my angles and all my stuff out on a piece of paper first, cut it all, and then test fit it, and it all went together. So I mean, all the same trigonometry, it's all. And this is just elementary school trigonometry. This is the same stuff you learn in 11th grade. But a lot of times when you do your test, you don't retain a lot of that stuff, and you don't know what it means. You could do it on a piece of paper, but when you're trying to build a picnic table to remember that stuff, it's a little bit more difficult. So, that's basically what I did for the camera project, for the rediscovery project, was just kind of verify all those angles. But at the time, no one did that.
Right.
No one really. It's easy, and almost anybody could probably do that make those calculations.
Not me, but yeah.
Well, I mean, a lot of people could, but it was just, I was the only one that was there and just did it, so.
Which is helpful. And because in 2012, when Bill Munns came down and Daniel Perez was down, you were with us then. And I think about that summer, it was July of 2012 when we finished that project. And you initiated another project, the camera project.
Yeah, so that was the start of the trail camera project. And I had a couple of trail cameras because I was living over in Redwood National Park. And that was one of my things that I played with was the trail cameras. And I said, hey, but my trail cameras that I had, they only, you load them up with D-sized batteries and they only last 6 weeks, with 8 D-sized batteries, huge batteries. But now the cameras last years. But when we first set everything up here, we could not figure out how to get the cameras to last all winter. But I remember I had like a couple of Primos cameras, some stealth cams, and some, I can't remember what I had. Oh, and then I think I had a couple of those small little Bushnells.
Yeah, I remember the small Bushnells.
And the small Bushnells, they lasted 6 months with the lithium batteries. And that was like the best. That was better than any other camera brand, is those little Bushnells. So I think I had like 2 or 3 of those Bushnells, and I think we had about 7 or 8 cameras.
I remember about 7
first year.
Yeah.
And I remember I was like, okay, well, I'll get like 2 months on this one before it runs out. And I think I had like external battery packs back then. All the cameras have little plugs on the bottom. So
one of those down from the intersection at the Peter Berm site, you even hooked up a little miniature solar panel.
Yeah, I had a solar panel on it, and then I had like had a couple of these like lantern batteries hooked together, and that one actually lasted a long time, but I think the tree fell down in front of it or something.
Yeah, it was right at the gap.
Yeah, it was like there was a tree on it, so it didn't really get much, but the batteries were still okay. So that was cool. And then right after that's when we did the fundraising. So we did a fundraising thing, and it was right when the crowdfunding came out. So we, I had the fundraising project. I think I got like $1,500.
Yeah.
And I didn't have that much money at the time because I was still in school at Humboldt, and I'm trying to buy books and beer and coffee, and I didn't really have that much money to play around with. So the crowdfunding was essential to the project. So a lot of people donated, $100, $50. And it was really great because it allowed us to work, because a lot of people are really interested in the site, but they don't live here. And I had we had the luxury of living right next to the site, within a couple hours drive. So, and we were working down here. So we were in essence, the drill bit or the spearhead of hundreds of people's efforts to work down here. And people like what we do. Unfortunately, we haven't really got any Bigfoots on camera, but
we got a lot of stuff. But let me interrupt for a second. Is how in the world those cameras work? They're magic to me. They do have an infrared function. They have a day function. How do they work? What triggers them? What kind of beam comes out? How far distance is it for registers?
You just explained it. So they have infrared, right? So they have an infrared sensor, and the infrared sensor.
What distance does that work?
It works, various distances. Some are out 50 feet, depending on the camera or whatever. But, they pick up infrared radiation, so anything that's warm, and they call them a PIR sensor, passive infrared sensor. And when you have more infrared radiation, it changes the voltage that goes through it. It's the way the sensor works. But the way you have on the front of the sensor, you have what's called a Fresnel lens, and it spreads the beam out. So it's actually a single sensor, but the shape of the lens on the front is actually a fan shape. So it's at a certain angle. Some are wider angles, some are smaller angles. But if you have a wider angle, it doesn't reach as far as a narrow angle. So if you have one that has a sensor that can pick up at 80 feet, it actually might only pick up 80 feet, but straight out in front of the camera, not to the sides. So some of the sensors are wide. They pick up stuff below, or they pick up stuff high, like the ones you have on your motion detector lights on your house.
The house, yeah.
Those are round sensors, and they pick up 360. So up, down, left, right, everything. The sensors on the front of cameras are just left and right. So if you can imagine a laser beam coming out of that sensor, it's only, you know, if you imagine a fan-shaped beam coming out of the front, it's only 2 feet tall, and it has to be projected straight. So when you set the camera has to be level with the ground. So if you have the camera pointed down at the ground, let's say you have the camera 12 feet high and pointed down at the ground, it's only picking up stuff that breaks that beam. It's not picking up anything that's above or below. So if you're pointed at 30 degrees at the ground, it's not picking up stuff beyond that, because all it sees is the ground. So something has to walk across it. That's why we have a hard time getting the little animals. The only way we got the Humboldt marten on camera was because we actually had a camera that was pointed towards the ground from up high.
Right.
And when the marten went across the ground, it broke that beam and was able to see. So the way that the cameras function is just, you know, it's fascinating. But those little sensors require voltage. So you need a few milliamps of voltage constantly in order for them to trigger. And once something goes across the sensor, then it triggers that, you know, that trigger circuit. And the first picture it takes, there's going to be a little bit of a lag. It's going to be like 1 second, 2 seconds, because it has to wake the camera up. So, you know, the circuit has to fire really quickly. And before, it used to be, you know, the circuit was like 8 seconds. I mean, it was a huge lag time. And I remember when less than 3 seconds was like amazing, you know, because it was like the first cameras where you could walk in front of it, and we'd look at all the pictures, and it was just the ass end of a bear.
That's right.
And it was just all pictures of bear asses, not bear asses, but bear as in like bears, like polar bears.
The south end of a northbound.
Yeah.
And what is your favorite game cam, would you say? The one that's worked the best?
Oh, like the brand?
Yeah, the one we use on the project.
Well, we only use Bushnells. The Bushnells are the most reliable that we have found. And, you know, the circuitry is pretty great. Everything works good. But the number one thing with the Bushnells is that they're waterproof. So the number one enemy of trail cams in the forest is water. So that's the big problem, all this stuff. So, but the trail cameras are particularly susceptible to rain damage. So if you want your trail camera case to feel heavy like a Pelican case. You want it to have heavy snaps, you know, rubber gasket. Yeah, so if you're buying a trail camera, you want one that's got a good, solid, heavy case. And then the number one thing that we do with them is we always put them in bear boxes. So you have to buy, you know, you buy a $100 camera, and you'll come back after having it for 1 year, and it's you know, chewed up.
Yeah.
So you need to have these bear boxes, and the bear boxes are usually like $50, and you got to put a lock on them and everything. But man, they save those cameras because the bears smash on them when they see them.
Now,
so
things that you've captured on the game cameras. What would you say the most abundant animal you see on the game camera?
Oh, it's hard to say. Deer. This is a really, really good deer habitat. So, you know, prey animals like deer. Do see a lot of predators like mountain lions and bears, but tons of deer. The deer just kind of hang out. The bears are mostly moving from one area to another. The deer just sit around and eat grass, you know. But we do get a lot of mountain lions and stuff, which are pretty cool. We get
more mountain lion than fox, huh?
Yeah, actually this last year we got a lot of foxes, you know, cruising around. But, oh yeah, and then we got some raccoons, which was pretty cool because we hardly ever see raccoons. Almost never see bobcats. And then we get the Humboldt martens, which I'm sure you probably want to ask me about. But
no,
the Humboldt marten, they thought it was extinct. And, you know, for years. Then I think it was in the 90s, 95, 96, when they put some track plates out here, and they were trying to catch fisher or something like that on these track plates, and they identified it as marten, and they thought, oh, well, maybe martens are back here. And it wasn't until, oh gosh, it was like that summer, 2010, 2011, when they started noticing these martens, and I think they got like fleeting pictures of one from they were those old school film camera traps. I think they got one on a baited station. They baited the station with chicken or something like that.
Yeah, that seems to be
and
the popular
so it was
thing.
kind of like, and I think they had some in the Arcata Forest. They had one there, and in a couple spots. So they were really fleeting, and they thought these animals were just so like elusive. And then we started getting them on our cameras, and the Forest Service was excited about that because we published that we got Humboldt Martin on the camera. But that wasn't until like 2014,
Right.
I think.
Well after the start of
2015.
2012, yeah.
Yeah, and that was right around when the Forest Service had highly suspected that there was populations of martins here. They had published on it a couple of years before, but they never really got any good pictures.
Yeah.
So we were one of the first groups to have like solid, good pictures of martins that looked really cool, you know, that were suitable to be published, you know, and say, look how cute this animal is, you know. So a lot of people like that, and you know, and everyone likes to see pictures of cute animals. So that was really cool seeing those, because they were basically thought to be extinct, and we helped, you know, I like to think that we helped
Yeah.
a little bit with the effort, because a lot of the stories were published about us. You know, they're making this huge push to include them on the endangered species list and everything. And when you Google the Humboldt Martin, you know, some of the first thing that shows up is articles on CNN and Center for Biological Diversity mentioning the Bigfoot hunters that found the elusive Humboldt Martin. So, you know, I like to think that we helped out with a little bit of the momentum, because when people see how cute this little critter is, you know, they don't have any value as meat animals. You know, you're not going to eat one.
Nope.
And there's not like a group of, you know, hunters that go out and trap them. They're not like a prey species for anything. So there's really no reason not to protect them. But I feel like we helped out a little bit, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I think we did too, and it was surprising to see that. At first, we didn't quite know exactly what it was, and then we had to confirm it, because it wasn't a fisher. Fishers are bigger. The other, what's left? The martin. And
Yeah.
then to be the Humboldt Martin, the one they thought was pretty much white, you know.
Well, it was
out.
pretty clear that it was a martin.
Yeah.
With the way it looked and the coloring, but you know, there was people that thought it was just a regular pine martin that we saw, that it was like over from, because there's pine martins over in Shasta or in Siskiyou, and you know, they're the regular pine martins, but the Humboldt Martin is small. It's like half the size of a pine martin, and the coloring is different. The ear shape is different.
The length ratio.
Yeah, the length ratio of the tail. The tail is like stubby. It's got this like weird, goofy little fluffy tail.
And the size of the feet.
Yeah, and the feet size, so its proportions are a lot different than the pine martin, which is like a little bit sleeker. This thing's kind of goofy looking, and they eat different things, you know. So.
Well, just a little on the how they normally the tracking areas is they put a track plate. It's just like a fine layer of oil on this piece of a stainless steel, and when animals walk across it, it takes off some of that oil and leaves little foot impressions, so it doesn't wash away. And they were hanging chicken carcasses. So they're tracked animals, and they were putting these wooden-shaped boxes with the carcasses inside, getting them to climb up around it to try to get all this information. We just find a good game trail and figure a nice place where wildlife takes advantage of it, and that's how we got our footage.
Yeah.
Success and failures of the Bluff Creek Project.
Success and failure?
Success and failures. What would you feel the biggest success of the Bluff Creek Project, the camera project aspect, and what would you say the biggest failure we've had as the Bluff Creek Project?
Obviously the biggest failure is we have failed to prove that Bigfoot is real. You know, I would love to say that Bigfoots are walking around everywhere down here, and this is the Bigfoot city where they all live, and multiple clans are hanging out and everything. It's just not the case. We just don't see Bigfoot cities down here. And that's also a success, I think, because now, you know, this area was always kind of magical to a lot of people. They had assumed that there was all these crazy, weird animals living down here, and it was like a lost world. And now we know that there is deer, there is bears, and there's mountain lions, and some little Humboldt Martins that live happily out here in the forest. Unfortunately, we now know that there's probably not that many Bigfoots.
Or maybe we could catch them on film.
Or maybe they're up on the ridges. Maybe we just need to put more cameras on the ridges.
Or maybe they're smart and they don't fall for the cameras, right?
Well, the reason we haven't gotten a Bigfoot on camera is not because the Bigfoots do backflips over the cameras. It's just because a Bigfoot is not stepped in front of the camera. So the logical conclusion is that Bigfoot is more elusive than mountain lions, at least 10 times or 100 times more elusive. So there's probably not that many Bigfoots.
So, Bigfoots, what got you interested in the pursuit of Bigfoot?
Oh, gosh. Well, I never really even thought about Bigfoot until I thought about Bigfoot. I always listened to, UFO radio shows and Bigfoot things, and I always thought Bigfoot was kind of cool. But when I moved up here, I remember looking at the Patterson, Gimlin, I remember looking at all the Bigfoot stuff and thinking like, okay, this is where the Patterson film was filmed, and it's not that far from my house. I could just go up there. And I remember all about that. It was just, I was pretty intrigued by it. That was kind of the local legend. So for me, it was like, I really liked driving around on these back roads and all this stuff. And then I remember my wife said, hey, this guy is staying in the campground with all these Bigfoot hunters. And I said, man, that sounds pretty cool. Like, I want to go and hang out with these guys. So my wife called you and was like, hey, can we hang out with you guys and go hiking? And I just thought that was pretty cool. So I guess that's what really got me into Bigfoot. Like, seriously thinking about Bigfoot. But for the most part now, all I do is, I don't really do much squatching or hiking around at night with night vision. It's all trail work and conservation and, trail cameras and stuff like that. So it's a little bit different. It's not like it is on TV. It's not as fun.
Glamorous.
Yeah, like a lot of people think that we hang out here and we drink beer and we're partying and we go out hiking around at night and listening for animals, and that's just not the case.
Yeah, when you travel these roads, you've done a lot of road traveling. You were running a camera on your front of your car, just in case across that road.
Yeah, I had the dash camera.
Yeah.
And I still have a dash camera, and most of the time when you see bears and animals, they're fleeting glimpses as they run across the road. So I thought that if I'm going to see a Bigfoot, it's going to be me whipping around a corner and seeing it, run around the road. So I thought the dash camera was the way to go, because you can cover many more miles with the car than you can on foot. So you could drive 30 miles at night and see 10 bears, or you could hike a half mile and see 100 Bigfoots, at night.
Where you're at, right? Or how much you had to drink the day before.
Yeah, because when you hike with some of these guys, they're like, every frog that ribbits and every woodpecker and every, every time somebody farts,
or creaking
it's
of a
like,
tree.
it's like 5 Bigfoots. They were attacked, they'll come out here once and they'll have, they saw a Bigfoot coming in on the road. They had him in their camp. They saw, they came out and made love to him all night long in front of the fireplace. They have all these great experiences, but we come out here, multiple times a year, stay out here for days and never see anything. So it's kind of interesting how
it is. So, which comes to the same question I get asked several times. Have you had any Bigfoot encounters here in Bluff Creek?
No. I mean, I thought I saw one out on the road once, and it was basically something standing straight up and walked across the road. And, I mean, for me, I hesitate to say that that was a Bigfoot encounter, but it was definitely something that made me, if anybody else saw it, that would be the best Bigfoot encounter of anybody's life, right. And it would define the rest of their life. But for me, I see so many bears and stuff, I can easily understand how I'd be mistaken. But it was a tall animal, the size of a human, walking across the road, and then it stepped off the road, looked at me, and it had face-like features. I remember seeing like a face-like feature It had 2 arms, but I mean, I couldn't really see it. I was in my car and I was kind of coming around the corner, and then it just took off down the hill. But it was tall. I remember that, and you know, so it could have been my thing is that I've actually seen bears stand on their back legs and walk around, you know, getting berry bushes and things like that, and you see something that's like 400 pounds standing straight up, and you see it from behind, and you're like, holy shit, like, we got one. So I know that bears do that. So
yeah. So based on what Steven Stroip would say, inconclusive.
Yeah, inconclusive.
Yeah. Okay, I've got a couple more last questions to ask you. One of them is projects. What is your current project you're working on right now, the Bigfoot related project?
Well, you know, currently I'm working here on this stuff, but I've got another project I've been working on up in Nevada. And in Nevada, I live up by Tahoe now, but they have these mountain ranges. They look like a bunch of, when you look at them on the map, they look like caterpillars marching towards Mexico from Canada.
Long skinny
yeah,
things
long
across.
skinny mountains that are you know, north-south oriented, and it's just the way the geology is. But some of these mountains are really tall. They're, you know, 10,000 feet tall, and they're covered with old glacial scars on tops of the mountains. And they have these pinyon, juniper, fir tree forests, ancient forests on tops of a lot of these hills. And a lot of them haven't really been explored, and they have amazing animals. They call them sky islands because they're completely surrounded by desert. So the animals are basically required to stay there. It's really interesting. So my current project now is I'm trying to get some trail cameras up at one of these locations, undisclosed currently, but it's up by the Black Rock playa where they do Burning Man. And so I want to get some cameras up there, and they have a lot of Bigfoot legends associated with that particular area. So I'm working on that project now. So hopefully this winter I'm going to get some stuff up there, and you know, it'll get covered with snow. It's kind of a similar area actually.
Yeah,
I mean,
I
they
can
got
imagine.
big trees and
Kind of alpine-ish.
you know, you cross the desert, the salt flats, and then you go up and you're in little pinyon junipers. And then you get to the top, and it's pines. Huge, you know, 200-foot tall, not 200 foot, but maybe 100-foot tall pine trees. And big trees, lakes, you know, there's stellar jays making noise and little critters running around and bears. And, you know, you're thinking to yourself, I'm in the middle of the desert, and there's bears running around here. Like, how cool is that?
That is pretty cool.
And they're weird looking. The bears are, like, they're tiny bears. They have... island, they call it island dwarfism or something, so you get weird proportioned animals. So I'm working on that right now.
That sounds pretty intriguing. You're also working on some maps too.
Yeah, so I have the Bigfoot the Bluff Creek Atlas, which I put together, and it seems like for the last few years I've been making these maps. You know, we go to these new spots and I say, hey, I made a map for this, I made a map for that. So I've been selling these map packets, you know, that have 5 or 6 maps that I've made. And, you know, I thought it would be great to have like a Bluff Creek Atlas, which has maps of all of the campgrounds, and then it has a description of each one and cool things that have happened there and little bits of history of each particular area. Because everywhere out here is like a Bigfooter's Mecca. You know, This is the place that people go. So I figured it'd be cool to have, like, you know, you could buy one of these and say, oh, let's go to this place or let's go to that place. That's the famous trackway for this. Or, you know, back in the 50s, this whole area was covered with Bigfoot researchers and people looking for tracks and people finding trackways. And, you know, so it's pretty cool to know where all those spots are.
So is there anything else you would like to add that we have not covered that you would like to share?
Oh, right now, I don't know. Let's see, we talked about the picnic table. We're working on some more projects, you know. I'd like to get a couple more modern cameras down at the film site. I think we're working with 10 plus cameras now.
Yeah, that's probably a good usable number to
mention. So, I don't know. I don't know what else I need to get covered. But we're trying. We're trying hard.
Well, you're a great member of the team, and I appreciate all your efforts. You are the fix-it guy. You're the guy we go to fix things. I've never heard you say that we can't make that, or that's not going to happen. You always make it work, and I appreciate that. And you're very patient with me, and I appreciate that as well. Well, thank you so much for coming on this talk thing because we're out in the middle of the woods. I wanted to do something more in the field talk.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
All right, well, time to get back after it. Thanks, Rob.
Hey, thank you. See you later.
No worries.
Take care.